Well, welcome to the 700 Club. It's election eve, and all through the country, politicians are stirring. Nearly 80 million Americans have already cast their ballots. Today, the candidates head into their final sprint on the campaign trail.
Yesterday, Vice President Harris spent the day shoring up the blue wall state of Michigan. Former President Trump hit 3 swing states in the East. Dale Hurd reports.
With Election Day in less than 24 hours, both candidates made their final pitches to voters over the weekend. Vice President Harris rallied in Michigan Sunday, visiting a black church.
I see a nation determined to turn the page on hatred and division and chart a new way forward.
In a visit with Arab American leaders, she said she'll support the creation of a Palestinian state in the Middle East.
We need to end the war, and we need to get the hostages out. And as President of the United States, I will do everything in my power to achieve that end and a two-state solution.
Former President Trump visited the battleground states of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia Sunday, pledging to tackle the economy and inflation.
It's going to be so good. It's going to be so much fun. It'll be nasty a little bit at times, and maybe at the beginning in particular.
And Trump warned about a Harris administration.
If she wins, you will live the rest of your life as second-class citizens in your own country.
Polling shows a race too close to call. New York Times Siena College polling shows the candidates tied or Harris leading in every swing state except Arizona. NBC gave Trump 2 minutes of free campaign ads Sunday during NASCAR and NFL coverage after a 90-second appearance by Harris on Saturday Night Live prompted a federal communications commissioner to say it broke the FCC's equal time rule. More than 78 million Americans have already cast their ballots. Trump continues to raise the issue of fairness.
The ones that should be locked up are the ones that cheat on these horrible elections.
Harris says Trump is trying to make people think their vote doesn't matter.
It is meant to distract from the fact that we have and support free and fair elections in our country. We did in 2020. He lost.
State and federal officials insist elections have only gotten more secure. And the FBI has issued a warning about 2 more false videos circulating online related to election security. One purporting to show Haitian migrants on their way to vote, and one showing a man destroying ballots in battleground Pennsylvania. The FBI reports they're Russian fakes. And with fears of post-election violence, large security fences have begun going up in Washington, D.C. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, the CBN News team will have live election night coverage on the CBN News Channel on YouTube and also on CBN Family, so you can watch our election coverage on an app or on YouTube. Right now, Chief Political Analyst David Brody is joining us for a look ahead. So, David, give us a preview. What states are you watching on Election Day?
Yeah, and Gordon, we're getting all the tools here on Election night. As a matter of fact, one of them's behind me, so let's go to the board, as they say. And I'm looking at a few different things. First of all, let's go to Michigan. This is going to be important. Michigan, if we click on Michigan, you can see I'll just be all night long just clicking on counties and states and all that. Look into Michigan, and we'll go right to Detroit. In that Detroit area, specifically Wayne County, we're looking at the black vote in Wayne County right there. Kamala Harris needs to do very well. She needs to do better than Joe Biden did there, so we're going to watch that. That's going to be one of, obviously, many urban areas around the country. When we go back to the national map, and we just come over here. Here's my little clicky thing, and I call it the clicky thing. I guess that's the official term now. And we go to Pennsylvania, and we click on Pennsylvania, and this is obviously Philadelphia. The suburbs around Philadelphia, 60% of the vote in Pennsylvania comes from the suburbs around Philly. And, of course, we're talking about Montgomery County, and you got Delaware County here and Chester County. But look over here. Bucks County, going to be crucial on election night, Gordon. That's what I'm looking at specifically because that's the suburban vote. It went for +4 for Biden in 2020. Can Kamala Harris do better than that? Will Trump actually take Bucks County? we're going to watch that as well. And then we're going to move over to North Carolina, so we'll go to the national map, and then we'll bounce down to the Sun Belt in North Carolina right over here. And you know where we're going. We're going to Raleigh and Wake County, specifically those college-educated voters, the Research Triangle area. We know all about that. It's going to be important that Kamala Harris basically runs up the numbers there, Gordon, because specifically she needs to do very, very well there. She's going to do well. The question is, can she do even better than Biden? So these are certain types of counties all across the country that we're going to be looking at, because it goes to a couple of key themes. One, female voters and college-educated voters. This race, Gordon, will be decided on race, listen to me, gender and education. Gender, clearly Kamala Harris has to get more females out. And on education, Donald Trump is hoping to get more non-college educated voters out, and Kamala Harris needs those college educated voters.
Well, let's talk about the gender gap, because I'm reading that even Iowa may be in play, what is traditionally a strong Republican state. That it could actually go to Harris. Are you seeing that kind of trend in this gender gap?
We don't know, and that's the truth of the matter. And I think the key here tonight, or the key on Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, what will the electorate look like? Some of these polls that we've been seeing are leaning a little bit more to the left based on 2020 voter turnout models. If that voter turnout model shifts, kind of like like a path of a hurricane. If it shifts at the last moment, then we have a whole different ball game, and those polls are off. So we don't know. This Iowa poll is very interesting. There's 6 electoral votes specifically there in Iowa. If Kamala Harris can win Iowa, well, you know what? Then hold on. Let me get out my calculator, because everything changes at that point. It'll be a much different scenario, Gordon.
Well, what's the path for victory for the candidates?
Well, let's take a look at that. It's very simple for Kamala Harris. Look, she has to win the 3 Rust Belt states, the blue wall that we keep hearing about. There it is. Look, she's so happy, because if she does win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she'll be very happy. That will literally get her to 270. In other words, if she wins those 3 states and loses all those other battleground states, it won't matter. Those are the 3 she needs. It gets her to 270 specifically. And then Donald Trump's path is a little bit more flexible. He can lose a couple of those blue wall states. For example, in this scenario, we gave him Michigan. Let's say he wins Michigan. Then look down to the Sun Belt. He only needs to win 3 of those 4 states. And once again, to be clear, we're putting those 3 in red. It could be a combination of any one of those 3. But the point is that he doesn't need to win all 3 blue wall states. So he's got a little bit more flexibility. He's doing better in the Sun Belt. And that's basically his path to 270.
Well, how are evangelicals going to vote this election? I'm listening to Harris yesterday, and she's preaching from a pulpit, and both candidates are making appeals to faith voters. So how are evangelicals going to vote?
Well, the Trump campaign is very confident that evangelicals are going to show up in spades. And I've been talking to a couple of sources on the ground that work in evangelical organizations, kind of a get-out-the-vote operation. They have seen evangelical turnout, at least in early voting, through the roof, especially in Georgia, where you're seeing, specifically in Georgia, one of those key battleground states, evangelicals voting this time around that did not vote in 2020. That is huge. So we'll see how it plays out on election night. But look, Gordon, in 2016, Donald Trump won 80% of the evangelical vote. In 2020, he won 76%. It was down a little bit. The sense on election night here is that it'll be back up at that 80% figure. That's going to be a key number to watch. Also, and not to geek out too much, Gordon, but I'm looking into specifically Georgia and North Carolina. Those are the 2 big kind of evangelical states, if you will. The electorate, in other words, what the actual vote is made up of. It was about 33% of voters in Georgia were evangelical. In North Carolina, it was 35%. Will that number be higher? So I'll watch for that. Also, the Catholic vote, very important. And of course, as the Catholic vote goes, so goes the nation. You know, Gordon, in 2016 and 2020, whoever won the Catholic vote won the presidency. Joe Biden won the Catholic vote by 5 percentage points in 2020. We now see if he can duplicate that in 2024. Having said that, we're going to look at Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, more Catholics up there in the Rust Belt than any other battleground state.
How would you rate the campaigns in sort of the closing moments here? Who do you think is doing a better job, both in terms of staying on message, ground game, voter turnout? Who's doing the better job?
Well, if you're going to talk about staying on message, take a wild guess. It's Kamala Harris. I mean, Donald Trump, you know, can be all over the place. There's no doubt about that. I mean, his handlers would love for him to just talk about the economy and immigration all the time, but he gets sidetracked. But that's Donald Trump. It's back to the let Trump be Trump, and that has worked in the past. We'll see if it works on election night. I'll say this, Gordon, it'll be interesting to see what that third key voting subject is. In other words, we know the economy is going to be number one. The question is immigration going to be two? Will abortion be number two? I think that's important. And where does threat to democracy come exactly in all of this? Because if that's going to be high up the list, that's going to be obviously good news for Kamala Harris. Here's the bottom line on all of this. Basically, what Democrat operatives are telling me is that for Kamala Harris to win, she has to win more with women than she loses among men. She's going to lose the man vote, if you will, the male vote. She has to do better with females than he does with males. That's the key to watch on Tuesday night.
All right, David, thanks for the insight. You can watch our election night coverage on the CBN News Channel, the CBN News YouTube channel. It all starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll have a special election edition of the 700 Club. Well, turning now to the Middle East, Iran is threatening a strong and complex attack on Israel and the United States with more powerful weapons and warheads. The U.S. and both the U.S. and Israel are preparing for this potential strike. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Saturday, Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei ramped up his threats against Israel and the United States.
The enemies, be it the Zionist regime or the United States of America, will definitely receive a crushing response in return for what they are doing against the Iranian nation and the resistance front.
An Iranian official also warned Iran may reconsider its nuclear doctrine if it faces an existential threat. He claims Iran has the ability to produce nuclear weapons, but is restrained by an Islamic ruling by the supreme leader. The Iranian threats follow Israel's attack in October that damaged Iran's ballistic missile production and destroyed much of its air defenses. That attack in response to Iran launching more than 180 ballistic missiles at Israel. The U.S. and Israel are making preparations. The U.S. CENTCOM commander meeting with Israeli military officials and visiting a U.S. defense battery sent here to bolster Israel's air defenses. The Pentagon also announcing it sent B-52s to the region. And on the border with Lebanon, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu laid out the goals for its war with Hezbollah.
With or without an agreement, the key to restoring the calm and security in the north, the key to returning our residents in the north safely to their homes is, first of all, to push Hezbollah beyond the Litani.
In Gaza, Israel's latest intelligence assessments suggest 51 of the 101 hostages held in Gaza are still alive. Intelligence also suggests Hamas has murdered at least 27 hostages in captivity. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
We may wake up the day after the election and be looking at, are we in a war? We need to take Iran seriously with these threats, and they're including us in the attack. They're saying we want to attack the United States of America. Let's believe them when they say that. Our military is pre-positioning assets, but we need to wonder, has Iran pre-positioned terrorists right in our own country, and will they rise up to strike based on orders coming out of Tehran? If there's ever a time to pray for our country, it's right now. The threats are truly around the globe, whether it's China threatening Taiwan, the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, our divisions right here at home. Please, let's ask heaven to intercede, because in the natural, all of these things seem impossible, and all of them seem to be unsolvable problems. But there is a King of Kings who can solve anything. So let's ask him to help us.